Joke number 1. A nun badly needing to use the restroom walked into a local Hooters. The place was hopping with music and loud conversation, and every once in a while, the lights would turn off. Each time the lights would go out, the place would erupt into cheers. But when the revelers saw the nun, the room went dead silent. She walked up to the bartender and asked, "May I please use the restroom?" The bartender replied, "Okay, but I should warn you that there is a statue of a naked man in there wearing only a fig leaf." "Well, in that case, I'll just look the other way," said the nun. So the bartender showed the nun to the back of the restaurant. After a few minutes, she came back out, and the whole place stopped just long enough to give the nun a loud round of applause. She went to the bartender and said, "Sir, I don't understand. Why did they applaud for me just because I went to the restroom?" "Well, now they know you're one of us," said the bartender. "Would you like a drink?" "No, thank you, but I still don't understand," said the puzzled nun. "You see," laughed the bartender, "every time someone lifts the fig leaf on that statue, the lights go out. Now, how about that drink?" Joke number 2. A husband and wife sat down at their table at a coffee shop in New York City. The wife saw a pretty young woman sitting at a table and wearing the most gorgeous pair of shoes she's ever seen. "I'd love to know where that lady got those shoes," she said to her husband. "Maybe I should ask her." The husband raises a hand. "Allow me, my love." The wife beams at him. "What a gentleman." "Thanks, sweetie." The husband walked over to the young woman and asked, "Where did you get those shoes?" "I got them in a store just around the corner from here," replied the woman. "Nice. How much were they?" "Oh, around $500. Thanks for letting me know." The husband returned to his table and said to his wife, "She got her shoes in Los Angeles." Joke number 3. A man is walking through the woods, and he finds a magic lamp on the ground. Instinctively, he picks the lamp up, rubs the side of it with his sleeve, and out pops a genie. The genie thanks the man for freeing him and offers to grant him 3 wishes. The man is ecstatic and knows exactly what he wants. "First," says the man, "I want $1 billion. The genie snaps his fingers, and a briefcase full of money materializes out of thin air. The man is wide-eyed in amazement and continues, "Next, I want a Ferrari." The genie snaps his fingers, and a Ferrari appears from a puff of smoke. The man continues, "Finally, I want to be irresistible to women." The genie snaps his fingers, and the man promptly turns into a box of chocolates. Joke number 4. John, a wealthy 60-year-old man, shows up at the country club one day with his new wife, a smoking hot 28-year-old. His buddies are amazed. "There is no way someone that young and attractive would agree to marry an old geezer like you. How did you pull it off?" "It's simple," John says. "I lied to her about my age." "Did you tell her you were 50? His friends ask. John shakes his head no. "There is no way she could believe you were 40. They exclaim. John shakes his head again. "So how old did you tell her you were exactly?" John smiles and whispers, 85. Joke number 5. A young Italian girl was going on her first date. Before the date, her nonna decided to give her some advice. Nonna said, "Sita here Anna letame, tell you about those younga boys. He's a-gonna try and kiss you. You are a-gonna like that. But don't let him do that. He's a-gonna try and kiss your breasts. You are a-gonna like that too. But don't let him do that. But most important, he's a-gonna try and lay on top of you. You are a-gonna like that. But don't let him do that. Doing that will disgrace the family." With that bit of advice, the granddaughter went on her date. The next day, she told Grandma that her date went just like she had predicted. "Nonna, I didn't let him disgrace the family. When he tried, I just turned over, got on top of him, and disgraced his family." Joke number 6. A newly married Liam goes to meet Father Charles. He greets the priest and says, "Father, I need to talk to you." The priest asks, "Is it a confession, my son?" Liam replies, "No, Father, I need to clarify something." The priest takes Liam to his private chamber and says, "Tell me, Liam, what is it?" Liam asks, "Father, why do some women try to change men after marriage? My friends keep teasing me about it." The priest smiles and replied, "Liam, my son." As the bride walks down the long aisle, she excitedly registers 3 stimuli. The altar, the choir, and the sound of the hymn being sung. Aisle, altar, and hymn. She becomes mesmerized. Aisle, altar, hymn, aisle, altar, hymn, aisle, altar, hymn. And finally, as she stops beside the groom, she is already saying to herself, I'll alter him. Joke number 7. Around the beginning of the 20th century, a society lady runs into the employment office one day and demands a maid right now. It seems she's having a dinner party that night, and her maid quit. The guy in the agency explains that all the girls he has right now have just gotten off the boat from Ireland. They're untrained. The lady says she'll train the girl, but needs someone right away. The agency man asks for volunteers, and Molly comes forward. She agrees to go and be trained. Well, the dinner party comes and goes, and although some of the guests seem to disappear now and then, everything works out just fine. Molly does a great job. The next morning, the lady's walking down the upstairs hall and sees Molly in one of the guest rooms. Looks like she's making the bed, but she's just standing there. Curious, the woman walks in and looks over Molly's shoulder. There on the bed lies a condom. The lady turns bright red and tries to laugh it off. Why, Molly? She says. Surely you have those in Ireland, don't you? Molly swallows nervously and says, Surely we do, madam, but we don't skin 'em. Joke number 8. And then when I got home last night, my wife demanded that I take her someplace expensive, so I took her to a gas station. That's when the fight started. After retiring, I went to the Social Security office to apply. The woman behind the counter asked me for my driver's license to verify my age. I looked in my pockets and realized I had left my wallet at home. I told the woman that I was very sorry, but I would have to go home and come back later. The woman said, Unbutton your shirt. So I opened my shirt, revealing my curly silver hair. She said, That silver hair on your chest is proof enough for me, as she processed my Social Security application. When I got home, I excitedly told my wife about my experience at the Social Security office. She said, You should have dropped your pants. You might have gotten disability too. And that's when the fight started. My wife and I were sitting at a table at my high school reunion, and I kept staring at a drunken lady swigging her drink as she sat alone at a nearby table. My wife asked, Do you know her? Yes, I sighed. She's my old girlfriend. I understand she took to drinking right after we split up those many years ago, and I hear she hasn't been sober since. My God, says my wife, who would think that a person could go on celebrating that long? And that's when the fight started. I took my wife to a restaurant. The waiter, for some reason, took my order first. I'll have the strip steak, medium rare, please. He said, Aren't you worried about the mad cow? Nah, she can order for herself. And that's when the fight started. A woman is standing nude, looking in the bedroom mirror. She is not happy with what she sees and says to her husband, I feel horrible. I look old, fat, and ugly. I really need you to pay me a compliment. The husband replies, Your eyesight's darn near perfect. And that's when the fight started. I tried to talk my wife into buying a case of Miller Lite for $14.95. Instead, she bought a jar of cold cream for $7.95. I told her the beer would make her look better at night than the cold cream. And that's when the fight started. My wife asked me if a certain dress made her butt look big. I told her not as much as the dress that she had worn yesterday. And that's when the fight started. A man and a woman were asleep like two innocent babies. Suddenly, at 3 o'clock in the morning, a loud noise came from outside. The woman, bewildered, jumped up from the bed and yelled at the man, Holy crap, that must be my husband. So the man jumped out of the bed. Scared and naked, he jumped out the window. He smashed himself on the ground, ran through a thorn bush into his car as fast as he could go. A few minutes later, he returned and went up to the bedroom and screamed at the woman, I am your husband. The woman yelled back, Yeah, then why were you running? And that's when the fight started. Saturday morning, I got up early, quietly dressed, made my lunch, grabbed the dog, and slipped quietly into the garage. I hooked up the boat to the truck and proceeded to back out into a torrential downpour. The wind was blowing 50 miles per hour, so I pulled back into the garage, turned on the radio, and discovered that the weather would be bad all day. I went back into the house, quietly undressed, and slipped back into bed. I cuddled up to my wife's back, now with a different anticipation, and whispered, The weather out there is terrible. My loving wife of 10 years replied, Can you believe my stupid husband is out fishing in that? And that's when the fight started. I asked my wife, where do you want to go for our anniversary? It warmed my heart to see her face melt in sweet appreciation. Somewhere I haven't been in a long time, she said. So I suggested, how about the kitchen? That's when the fight started. My wife and I were watching Who Wants to Be a Millionaire while we were in bed. I turned to her and said, do you want to have sex? No, she answered. I then said, is that your final answer? She didn't even look at me this time, simply saying, yes. So I said, then I'd like to phone a friend. And that's when the fight started. Joke number 9. A young couple had recently gotten married, and after 3 months, the wife went to the doctor for a checkup. The doctor told her she was pregnant. She was thrilled, but the doctor also informed her that due to a rare complication, she shouldn't have sex with her husband until after the birth. The wife went home and told her husband what the doctor had said. The husband agreed to try and hold out. After a month, the husband couldn't resist anymore and asked his wife to be intimate. Of course, she refused. Seeing her husband so depressed and sad, the wife called him over and said, my dear husband, I know you're suffering. Here, take $100 and go to a sex worker to relieve yourself. The husband took the money and thought to himself, what a wonderful and considerate wife. Opened the door and went down the stairs feeling cheerful. When he reached the first floor, the neighbor's wife saw him and asked, why are you so happy? He happily told her the whole story. She then said, why go looking outside for a sex worker? Give me the $100 and I'll take care of you. The man agreed, gave her the money, went into her apartment, enjoyed himself for 20 minutes, and then returned home. His wife saw him and was astonished, asking, what happened, dear? You came back so quickly. Did you change your mind? The husband replied, I went downstairs and the neighbor saw me. She offered to take the money instead, so that's what I did. His wife got very angry and yelled, what? When she was pregnant, I did her husband for free. Joke number 10. A woman comes home and tells her husband, remember those headaches I've been having all these years? Well, they're gone. No more headaches? The husband asks, what happened? His wife replies, Margie referred me to a hypnotist, and he told me to stand in front of a mirror, stare at myself, and repeat, I do not have a headache. I do not have a headache. I do not have a headache. Well, it worked. The headaches are all gone. That's wonderful, proclaims the husband. His wife then says, you know, you haven't been exactly a ball of fire in the bedroom these last few years. Why don't you go see the hypnotist and see if he can do anything for that? A little less enthused, the husband agrees to try it and goes a few days later. Following his appointment, the husband comes home, rips off his clothes, picks up his wife, and carries her into the bedroom. He puts her on the bed and says, don't move, I'll be right back. He goes into the bathroom and comes back a few minutes later and jumps into bed and makes passionate love to his wife, like never before. His wife says, wow, that was wonderful. The husband says, don't move, I will be right back. He goes back into the bathroom, comes back, and round 2 was even better than the first time. The wife sits up and her head is spinning. Oh my God, she proclaims. Her husband again says, don't move, I'll be right back. With that, he goes back into the bathroom. This time, his wife quietly follows him, and there, in the bathroom, she sees him standing at the mirror and saying, she's not my wife. She's not my wife. She's not my wife. She's not my wife. His funeral service will be held on Saturday. Joke number 11. A man boarded an airplane and took his seat. As he settled in, he glanced up and saw an unusually beautiful woman boarding the plane. He soon realized she was heading straight toward his seat. Lo and behold, she took the seat right beside his. Eager to strike up a conversation, he blurted out, business trip or vacation? She turned, smiled, and said, business. I'm going to the annual Sexual Studies Convention in Chicago. He swallowed hard. Here was the gorgeous woman he had ever seen sitting next to him, and she was going to a meeting about sexual studies. Struggling to maintain his composure, he calmly asked, what's your business role at this convention? Lecturer, she responded. I use my extensive personal experience to share interesting facts about sexuality. Really, he gulped. Like what? Well, she explained. For instance, Native American Indians are the most passionate. while Jewish men are the most likely to satisfy a woman fully. And in terms of lasting the longest, surprisingly, it's the Southern redneck. Saying this, she became a little uncomfortable and blushed. I'm sorry, she said. I shouldn't really be discussing this with you. I don't even know your name. Oh, said the man, holding out his hand. Tonto Goldstein, at your service. But my friends call me Bubba. Joke number 12. Frank takes his blind date Heather to an amusement park. Frank and Heather agree that Heather should decide on the first thing to do. Then Frank, then Heather, then Frank, and so on. What do you want to do first? Asks Frank. I want to get weighed, replies Heather. So Frank takes Heather to the weight guesser. Let me guess, says the weight guesser. You weigh 128 pounds? You are 2 pounds off, replies Heather. She steps on the scale, and sure enough, she weighs 130 pounds. After Frank and Heather ride the Ferris wheel, Frank asks, What do you want to do next? I want to get weighed, replies Heather. But you already did, twice. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. No, I didn't. So Frank reluctantly takes Heather to the weight guesser a third time. Let me guess, says the weight guesser, remembering what she had weighed the first 2 times. You weigh 130 pounds. Heather steps on the scale, and sure enough, she still weighs 130 pounds. Now, this goes on for a while. Frank always suggests to go on a different ride, and Heather always says, I want to get weighed. After much arguing, Frank reluctantly takes Heather to the weight guesser over and over. Both Frank and the weight guesser become very annoyed. Finally, the blind date is over. Frank takes Heather home to her roommate, Lisa. How was your date? Asks Lisa. Oh, wissa, says Heather. It was wayma and woozy. Joke number 13. There was a man who was very happily married, but every birthday he would have the same fantasy request for his wife. He wanted a threesome, and every year the wife says no. This continues on for several years, until finally the wife has enough and finally agrees. Fine, Sam, yes, you can have your darn threesome. Who do you want it to be with? George quickly responds with, Well, do you remember Sarah, who works in accounting at my office? Yes, of course, the wife responds. Well, with her, said Sam, and one of her friends. Joke number 14. A man walks into a car dealership. A salesman greets him at the door, and after some chatting, they end up taking a car for a test drive. This car is so quiet, sir, exclaims the salesman. The ride is calm and relaxing. The man shakes his head. No, I'm buying this car for my wife, and I certainly wouldn't describe her as the quiet and calm type. The salesman quickly transfers his potential buyer to another car. Then perhaps this would be more her style. This car is quick, sleek, and agile. The man sighs. No, my wife is certainly not the sleek type by any means. Frustrated, the salesman transfers the man to a third car, a sure winner. Now, sir, I happen to know this car is very popular. Nearly every man who has been here has taken it for a test drive. Sold. Joke number 15. It was a few days before Valentine's Day, and a young woman was taking an afternoon nap. After she woke up, she told her husband, I just dreamed that you gave me a pearl necklace for Valentine's Day. What do you think it means? Her husband smiled. Oh, I have a feeling you'll know later tonight, he said with a wink. His wife squealed with joy. That evening, the man came home with a small package and gave it to his wife. Delighted, she opened it, only to find a book titled The Meaning of Dreams. Joke number 16. A tourist driving across rural England decided to stay the night in a small town. The only place with rooms available was a quaint English pub, the George and Dragon, which had a lovingly painted sign with a knight beside a defeated dragon blowing in the evening breeze. Entering the bar room, which, while empty, had a roaring fire against the back wall, leather-padded booths, and a mahogany bar with brass rails polished to a shine. They went up to the bar and asked for a room. Rooms cost £20 per night. We don't accept euros, and you must be out by 7 a.m. tomorrow, or else you pay for both days. All right, then, could I get something to eat, May? Kitchen closed at 6, and I'm not going back there until 11 a.m. tomorrow, no matter what you say. Anything else? Yes, could I please talk to George? Joke number 17. Stanley is looking for a new desk for his office, and he spots one that looks perfect in an antique shop window. He goes inside and asks the shopkeeper how much it is. That desk is going for $5,000, says the shopkeeper. $5,000 for an old desk? That's outrageous, exclaims Stanley. Ah, says the shopkeeper, but this is a magic desk. He turns to the desk and asks, Desk, how much money do I have in my pocket? The desk taps one of its legs on the floor 4 times. The shopkeeper turns out his pocket, and, sure enough, there are $4 coins there. Wow, that's pretty cool, says Stan. All right, desk, how much money does my wife have in her bank account? At this, the desk goes wild, manically banging all 4 of its legs up and down repeatedly for over 5 minutes nonstop. Darn, where did she get all that from? Wonders Stanley. The desk's legs slide apart and its drawers drop down. Joke number 18. Why is fishing better than dating? Well, you can catch and release a fish. You don't have to lie and make it promises. When you go fishing and you catch something, that's good. If you're making love and you catch something, that's bad. Fish don't compare you to other fishermen neither, and don't want to know how many other fish you caught. In fishing, you lie about the one that got away. In love, you lie to still be friends after you let it go. You don't have to necessarily change your line to keep catching fish. You can catch a fish on a 20-cent night crawler. If you want to catch a woman, you're talking dinner and a movie at the minimum. And don't forget, fish don't mind if you fall asleep in the middle. Joke number 19. A good-looking man walked into a singles bar, bought a drink, and settled down ready to use his best lines. But for the next 2 hours, every woman he approached gave him the brush off. Then suddenly a really ugly guy walked in, and within seconds he was surrounded by beautiful, available women. A few minutes later, he sauntered out with a stunning brunette on each arm. The handsome guy was thoroughly despondent. Turning to the bartender, he said, I don't get it. How did that guy walk out with those two and I can't even get a phone number? I don't know what his secret is, said the barman, but he does the same thing every night. He walks in, orders a drink, and just sits there, licking his eyebrows. Joke number 20. And a farmer took his truck in for repairs. The local mechanics couldn't do it while he waited, so as he didn't live far, he said he would just walk home. On the way home, he stopped at the hardware store and bought a bucket and a gallon of paint. He then stopped by the feed store and picked up a couple of chickens and a goose. However, struggling outside the store, he now had a problem. How to carry his entire purchases home. While he was scratching his head, he was approached by a little old lady who told him she was lost. Can you tell me how to get to 1603 Mockingbird Lane is? She asked. Well, said the farmer, as a matter of fact, my farm is very close to that house. I would gladly walk you there, but I can't carry this lot. Why don't you put the can of paint in the bucket? Suggested the little old lady. Carry the bucket in one hand, put a chicken under each arm, and carry the goose in your other hand. Why, thank you very much, he said, and proceeded to walk the old girl home. On the way, he said, let's take my shortcut and go down this alley. We'll be there in no time. The little old lady looked him over cautiously, then said, I am a lonely widow without a husband to defend me. How do I know that when we get in the alley, you won't hold me up against the wall, pull up my skirt, and have your way with me? Holy smokes, lady, the farmer said. I'm carrying a bucket, a gallon of paint, 2 chickens, and a goose. How in the world could I possibly hold you up against the wall and do that? Well, if you were to do such a thing, the old lady replied, you would set the goose down, cover him with the bucket, put the paint on top of the bucket, and I would hold the chickens. Joke number 21. A man foolishly asks his wife why she keeps staring out of the window. Taking a very deep breath, she replies, I'm really fed up with the state of Mrs. Brown's blinds. Mrs. Perkins aren't much better. And that Mrs. Lewis scruffy cow. Look at them. Filthy. They're just not house-proud like me. Dirty blinds are such an eyesore. If you were a real man, you'd go over and get them to do something about it. In fact, you must, for I won't stand for it any longer. I'll tell you what, says the man as he peers through the window beside her. I'll see what I can do. The following morning, she approaches him, beaming. I can't believe it. The blinds. They're all immaculate. What did you say to them? Nothing. He says, I just cleaned the window. Joke number 22. These two guys are sat in their hospital beds having a little chat. The first guy asks the second, "What are you in for?" "Camera down the throat," the second guy replies. "Oh, endoscopy?" the first guy asks. The second guy says, "Yeah, checking for stomach cancer. How about you?" "Camera up the butt," the first guy says. "Oh, colonoscopy? Checking for bowel cancer?" asks the second guy. The first guy says, "No, my neighbor was sunbathing and my wife caught me taking a photo." Joke number 23. In a crowded city at a bus stop, a beautiful young woman was waiting for the bus. She was decked out in a tight leather miniskirt with matching tight leather boots and jacket. As the bus rolled up and it became her turn to get on, she became aware that her skirt was too tight to allow her leg to come up to the height of the first step on the bus. Slightly embarrassed and with a quick smile to the bus driver, she reached behind and unzipped her skirt a little, thinking that this would give her enough slack to raise her leg. Again, she tried to make the step onto the bus, only to discover she still couldn't, so, a little more embarrassed, she once again reached behind and unzipped her skirt a little more, and for a second time attempted the step, and once again, still she could not raise her leg because of the tight skirt. With a coy little smile to the driver, she again unzipped the offending skirt to give a little more slack and again was unable to make the step. About this time, a big Texan that was behind her in the line picked her up easily from the waist and placed her lightly on the step of the bus. Well, she went ballistic and turned on the would-be hero, screeching at him, "How dare you touch my body? I don't even know who you are." At this, the Texan drawled, "Well, ma'am, normally I would agree with you, but after you unzipped my fly 3 times, I kind of figured that we was friends." Joke number 24. A man is out on a golf course when he hears someone shout, "Foray!" He looks this way and that, but doesn't see the ball until whack! He shouts and curses and moans, holding both hands over his crotch. "Oh, you poor thing," a woman cries, running over to assist him. She gets on her knees and starts to rub his groin with her hands. "Is that better?" He shakes his head, so she pulls his pants down and starts rubbing it in earnest. After a few minutes, she smiles and says, "That seemed to help a lot." "Oh, it was wonderful," he says, "but the ball hit my thumb." Joke number 25. A man and his wife were spending the day at the zoo. She was wearing a loose-fitting pink dress, sleeveless with straps. He was wearing his usual jeans and t-shirt. As they walked through the ape exhibit, they passed in front of a large silverback gorilla. Noticing the wife, the gorilla went crazy. He jumped on the bars, and holding on with one hand and 2 feet, he grunted and pounded his chest with his free hand. He was obviously excited at the pretty lady in the pink dress. The husband, noticing the excitement, thought this was funny. He suggested, "Now maybe pucker your lips and wiggle your bottom, see what that does." She played along and the gorilla got even more excited, making noises that would wake the dead. The husband then suggested she let one of her straps fall to show a little more skin. She did, and the gorilla was about to tear the bars down. "Now, show your thighs and sort of fan your dress at him," he said. This drove the gorilla absolutely crazy and he started doing flips. The husband smiled sweetly at his wife as he opened the cage door. "Now, tell him you have a headache." Joke number 26. And a man walks down the street when suddenly he hears a tiny voice above him saying, "If you make one more step, a brick will land on your head and kill you." Surprised, the man stops just as a huge brick crashes down right in front of him. Stunned, he continues on his way, and after a few minutes hears the voice again. "Stop! Don't cross the road. If you do, the next vehicle will run you over." The man freezes and again is almost hit by a speeding car. The man sighs a sigh of relief and asks the air, "Who are you?" "I am your guardian angel," answers the voice joyfully. "Really?" says the man in sudden anger. "Then where the heck were you when I got married?" Joke number 27. 2 women came before wise King Solomon, dragging between them a young man in a 3-piece suit. "This young lawyer agreed to marry my daughter," said the first one. "No, he agreed to marry my daughter," said the other. And so they haggled before the king until he called for silence. "Bring me my biggest sword," said Solomon, "and I shall hew the young attorney in half." Each of you shall receive a half. Sounds good to me, said the first woman. But the other woman said, Oh, sire, do not spill innocent blood. Let the other woman's daughter marry him. The wise king did not hesitate a moment. The attorney must marry the first lady's daughter, he proclaimed. But she was willing to hew him in two, exclaimed the king's court. Indeed, said wise King Solomon, and that proves she is indeed the true mother-in-law. Joke number 28. Once again, the female staff at Whatsamata University will be offering courses for men of all marital status in an attempt to help males and females understand each other better. Attendance in at least 10 of the following is required. Below them are 10 courses the male staff offered right back. Whatsamata University's Seminars for Men 1. Combating Stupidity 2. You Two Can Do Housework 3. Resistance to Beer 4. How to Properly Fill an Ice Tray 5. We Do Not Want Sleazy Underwear for Christmas 6. Understanding the female response to coming home. Drunk at 4. AM 7. Wonderful Laundry Techniques, also called Don't Wash My Silks 9. Get a Life. Learn to Cook 10. How Not to Act Like an Idiot When You Are Obviously Wrong 11. Spelling. Even You Can Get It Right 12. Understanding Your Financial Incompetence 13. You. The Weaker Sex 14. Reasons to Give Flowers 15. Garbage. Getting It to the Curb 16. You Cannot Always Wear Whatever You Please 17. How to Put Down a Toilet Seat 18. Give Me a Break. Why We Know Your Excuses Are Lies 19. How to Go Shopping with Your Mate Without Getting Lost 20. The Remote Control. Overcoming Your Dependency 21. Helpful Posture. Hints for Couch Potatoes 22. Mother-in-laws are people 223. The weekend and sports are not synonymous 24. How not to act younger than your children 25. You too can be a designated driver 26. Male bonding. Leave your friends at home 27. Attainable goal. Omitting foul expletives from vocabulary 28. You don't really need that portion. Whatsamata University's Seminars for Women Fall Catalog. Once again, the male staff at Whatsamata University will be offering courses for women of all marital status in an attempt to help males and females understand each other better. Attendance in at least 10 of the following is required. 1. Combating the impulse to nag. 2. You can change the oil 2. 4. How to properly fill a beer mug 5. We do not want ties for Christmas 6. Understanding the female causes of male drunkenness 7. How to do all your laundry in one load and have more time to watch football 8. Parenting. Your husband gave you children so you could have someone other than him to boss around 9. How to encourage your husband to cook more and be able to stomach his slop 10. How not to sob like a sponge when your husband is right 11. Get a life. Learn to kill spiders yourself 12. Balancing a checkbook. Even you can get it right 13. Comprehending credit card spending limits and financial responsibility 14. You. The whining sex 15. Shopping. Doing it in less than 16 hours 16. If you want to know how that looks on you, ask your mother 17. How to close the garage door 18. If you don't want an excuse, don't demand an explanation. 19. How to go fishing with your mate and not catch pneumonia. 20. Living without power windows. How to turn a crank. 21. Romanticism. The whole point of caviar, candles, and conversation. 22. How to retain your composure while your husband is relaxing by himself. 23. Why you don't need to invite your mother over every weekend. 24. Payday and shopping are not synonymous. 25. How to act younger than your mother. 26. You too can carry a backpack. 27. Female friendship. Why your best friends are not the women who complain about you. The most. 28. Learning to appreciate the beer belly and lard butt morphologies of men. 29. Attainable goal. Catching a ball before it stops, moving 30. How to close the top on the toothpaste. Joke number 29. A man in his mid-40s bought a new BMW and was out on the interstate for a nice evening drive. The top was down, the breeze was blowing through what was left of his hair, and he decided to see what the engine had. As the needle jumped up to 80 miles per hour, he suddenly saw flashing red and blue lights behind him. There's no way they can catch a BMW, he thought to himself and opened her up further. The needle hit 90, then 100, and finally reality hit him. And he knew he shouldn't run from the police, so he slowed down and pulled over. The cop came up to him, took his license without a word, and examined it and the car. It's been a long day. This is the end of my shift, and it's Friday the 13th. I don't feel like more paperwork, so if you can give me an excuse for your driving that I haven't heard before, you can go. The guy thinks for a second and says, "Last week my wife ran off with a cop. I was afraid you were trying to give her back." "Have a nice weekend," said the officer, and walked away. Joke number 30. Four guys have been going on the same fishing trip for many years. A few days before the group's annual departure date, John's wife puts her foot down and tells him he isn't going. John's fishing buddies are very upset that he can't go, but what can they do? 2 days later, the three get to the camping site to find John sitting there with his tent set up, firewood gathered, dinner cooking on the fire, and drinking a cold beer. "Heck, John, how long you been here? And how did you talk your missus into letting you go?" "Well, I've been here since last night. Yesterday evening, I was sitting in my recliner when my wife came up behind me, put her hands over my eyes, and asked, 'Guess who?' I pulled her hands off, and there she was, wearing a nightie. She took my hand and pulled me into the bedroom, where she'd lit candles and put rose petals all over the place. Looked like something out of a movie. Well, she's been reading 50 Shades of Grey or something. On the bed, she had handcuffs and ropes. She told me to tie her up and cuff her to the bed, so I did. And then she said, 'Honey, you can do whatever you want.' So, boys, here I am." Joke number 31. A man walks out to the street and stops a taxi just going by. He gets into the taxi, and the cabbie says, "Perfect timing. You're just like Frank." Passenger, "Who?" Cabbie, "Frank Feldman. He was a cabbie who did everything right all the time. Like my coming along when you needed a cab, he was always in the right place at the right time. Things happen like that to Frank Feldman every single time." Passenger, "There are always a few clouds over everybody." Cabbie, "Not Frank Feldman. He was a terrific athlete. He could have won the Grand Slam at tennis. He could golf with the pros. He sang like an opera baritone and danced like a Broadway star. And you should have heard him play the piano. He was an amazing guy, perfect in every way." Passenger, "Sounds like he was something really special." Cabbie, "There's more. He had a memory like a computer. He remembered everybody's birthday. He knew all about wine, which foods to order, and which fork to eat them with. And he could fix anything. Not like me. I change a fuse, and the whole street blacks out. But Frank Feldman, he could do everything right. He never made a mistake. He was perfect." Passenger, "Wow, some guy then." Cabbie, "He always knew the quickest way to go in traffic and avoid traffic jams. Not like me, I always seem to get stuck in them. But Frank, he never made a mistake. And he really knew how to treat a woman and make her feel good. He was the best lover in bed and could take his wife to the top of the mountain. He would never answer her back, even if she was in the wrong. His clothing was always immaculate, shoes highly polished too. He was the perfect man. He never made a mistake. No one could ever measure up to Frank Feldman." Passenger, "This Frank Feldman was an amazing fellow. How did you meet him?" Cabbie, "Well, I never actually met Frank. He died, and I have the pleasure of being married to his widow." Joke number 32. And then Michael's wife, refusing to give in to the looks of growing old, goes out and buys a new line of expensive cosmetics guaranteed to make her look years younger. After a lengthy sitting before the mirror applying the miracle products, she asks her husband, "Darling, honestly, if you didn't know me, what age would you say I am?" Looking over her carefully, Michael replied, "Judging from your skin, 20, your hair, 18, and your figure, 25. "Oh, you flatterer," she gushed. Just as she was about to tell Michael his reward, he stops her by saying, "Whoa, hold on there, sweetie. I haven't added them up yet. P.S. Please let us know if you've seen him. We're very worried. Thanks for watching our jokes. If you enjoyed this video and want more laughs, Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell icon to stay updated with our latest jokes. Join our community of joke lovers and never miss a punchline. See you in the next video.